Hello everybody, my name is Nicole Fedele and I'm from Italy. I've been flying for 16 years now and I've been taking part to competitions, especially World Cup and FAI 1 competitions with the Italian national team. In this last period, I'm more involved in acro because I need some new challenge. So for this year, I decided to quit competitions, cross-country competitions for a while and see what's going on with a new discipline because I need some to recover some motivation and enthusiasm doing something new. And I think this is one of the points I will touch later during my lecture. I would like tonight. I would like to start talking about what makes a pilot successful. Is it just talent, or is it something that anyone can reach with training and application? What do you think? Now, what I personally think is that to become a champion, you have to be also talented somehow, for sure. But I also think that with proper training, everybody can reach a very good level nowadays, especially with all the sources we have, and we can we can base on like X contest and all the knowledge coming from the mentors and good pilots all around the world. I would like to break down the training in three areas: physical, technical, and mental. About the physical, well, why do we need to be fit for paragliding?
To survive evening drinking.
Yes, this can be one reason. Yeah, but well, obviously, for example, in the Red Bull X Alps, it's very easy to tap the physical elements, how necessary they are, and the same for the I Can Fly competitions, for example. But in normal flying, I have the impression that many pilots are really underestimating the physical aspect a lot. I still think that the mental part is the one that has the biggest impact in the performance. But for sure, the physical training is very important and can massively impact flying, especially when you start taking longer flights. About the physical, I would like to go a bit more in detail and talk about some aspects. So we take physical. I write like one, and this is one of the reasons why physical training is very important. Endurance and ability to concentrate longer are often correlated with each other. So if you want to be able to fly better and improve your skills, you have to start looking into longer flights and longer competitions. I remember, for example, something that happened to me in 2014. I had an accident in mid-October, and I broke my back. I underwent a surgery, and the doctor said that for 6 months I could not fly. But in January, we had the World Championship in Roldanillo, Colombia, and I was really motivated to go. So when I came back from the hospital, I immediately called my personal trainer at that time, and I told him, listen, we have to be ready for the Worlds. And so we started immediately with quite intense physical training at the gym, and associated to a nutrition plan that was quite hard too. But after 3 months, I was ready. Let's say ready. I was in a much better shape than predicted, and I finally went to the World Championship in Roldanillo. For the ones who know Roldanillo, it's a place where the flyability is really high, so you can fly every day, 3, 4, 5 hours in average per day. So it's quite intense. And when I went there, I stayed there for 3 weeks. We had 1 week training with the national team and then 2 weeks competition. And I remember that after 2 weeks, so after 1 week competition and 1 week training, I was really tired because I had recovered a lot, but my physical shape was not 100%, obviously. So I was quite concerned about the upcoming week, the upcoming flyball days, and I felt very, very tired. And I remember the last day, I went to the takeoff and I say to my mate, hey, well, let's hope that today they will give us a short task because I'm really done. And at the end, they gave us the longest task of the comp, 130 kilometers, and it was quite hard too. So after I landed, after about 5.5 hours, I was really finito. But I managed anyway to stand on the podium, only the third place, but was anyway a good success for me because considering how I went to Colombia, I could not aim to a better position than this. So this is, I want to say this because if you really want to give the best and to have the best performance, you have to train a lot. I mean, you cannot leave anything to the case. So, another thing is that can be affected by physical training is the safety.
But how do you usually train endurance? Just run or bicycle or what?
Yeah, different kinds of sports like gym. The gym, I train a lot. No, you can see. Bicycle and swimming. Swimming was really good for my back. This is, I think, one of the most complete sports. It's really helpful. So let's go back to the safety. So it could be compromised after a few days flying every day, if you're not fit, obviously. Consider that you should be able, for example, to stall your glider even after 5 hours long flight. So doing a stall should become easy for you, like doing big gears. And even if you don't need to stall your glider, the B riser steering, or the C risers according to the glider you're flying, can be very tiring if your shoulders and arms muscles are not trained enough. And another thing for the ones for the small pilots like me that have to carry ballast, if you have you have to be able to land with a lot of ballast, also in zero wind, and so you require leg muscles, good ligaments, and also for pushing the speed bar, it's very important to have good muscles in your legs. Maybe not all pilots have this problem because, as I see nowadays, this lightweight equipment is becoming very popular. But in my case, I still have these problems, especially when I was going to competitions. My backpack was super heavy, and so this. Even if it's unconscious, it can really affect your decisions. So, for example, if you look at Kriegel's track logs, he often abandons completely the line course, and because it's the move that makes sense. But this, if it doesn't work, it's gonna take him very deep in a much harder work. So if you are not trained to carry your bag, probably unconsciously you will try to fly in a more conservative way, and you can also maybe do stupid decisions based on comfort. So basically, good physical condition influences flying in a very favorable way and affects our decisions, therefore our performance. We go to the technical now. Instruments. So, for the technical point of view, you get to know your instruments and understand the maximum capacity. So, in some countries, for example, in Italy, there are many courses to learn how to use your instruments. But in any case, if you go to competitions, there is always somebody that can help you to teach you how to use your instrument. At the same time, you have to know the capacity of your glider at SAVI courses. And from my point of view, these courses should be mandatory, even if in many countries they are not. For example, in Italy, they are not. And I say this because I saw the success of the acro pilots coming to cross-country competitions. For example, Patacaz, Nicola Donini, Seiko Fukuoka, Felix Rodriguez, and Jack Pimlet. They all are really good, skilled acro pilots, and when they came to the cross-country competitions, they really get into the game very fast and with a lot of success. So, as I said before, to get better skills from the technical point of view, you should also learn to take off with heavy equipment, even in gentle wind, gentle downwind. And you should also learn a lot of meteorology, understand the sky not just now, but predict what will gonna happen in a few hours along the route, the cross country or competition route. You should learn to deploy your reserve parachute. You can do this both during SAV training or also at the gym, jumping off, for example, of a high table to a gym mattress and learning to roll off the energy. And a good idea to test, to understand your limits is the G-force trainer that will teach you to understand the G-force in a spiral. There is a good one in Gerlitzen, for example, and for the ones who want to go in Austria at the Flieger base. And it's really interesting to see how much G's your body can stand. Try to be analytical, and if you find something that you don't understand, start to take it apart, look at every single piece and learn how to improve every single building block. This, to make an example, at the beginning of my flying career, I was not so good at taking the start, and I start to wonder myself why. And I found some reasons. So one was that I was launching too late, always too late. So I had not the time to put myself in a good position on time. The second one is that I realized that I didn't feel at ease in the gaggle. So when it was too crowded, I was always trying to take a larger curve to stay outside of the gaggle, so I was not really in the core of the thermal. I was always somewhere in the wrong place. And the third one was the lack of confidence. So after analyzing this, I tried to find some solutions. The first was obvious, so I was taking off sooner, as soon as the window was open. The second one, I started to fly in a more aggressive way. That doesn't mean necessarily, it's not necessarily a bad word. I mean, more aggressively, it means that I was more determined. I was always in the respect of the sports rules and of the flying mates, but I was I was flying with more decision. And the third, I was still respecting the other pilots, but I was no more so intimidated by the big names, because I realized that when I was, for example, in the thermal with, I don't know, a rival that I was considering stronger than me, I was just giving him or her the way, so I was just too intimidated. So I decided to try to fly a bit, to have more self-confidence and to be more, to take my decisions and don't get scared by the others. I did it here because otherwise we don't have space for the rest. So, metal. Well, about mental, I read a couple of books of sports psychology because this is more or less universal for every sport. And because I think that in paragliding, this aspect is not taken enough into account. And I really think that it is the one that can make the big difference. I live together with a professional sailor, and I had the opportunity to travel with him during some important competitions. And I saw that every sailing team has their own psychologist that has a very important role inside the group, because he perfectly knows all the members of the crew, and he knows when he has to speak to somebody, what to say, the right words to say in the right moment. So this is something that we don't have in paragliding, and I think we still have a kind of self-teaching approach. And this is, I think, the clue, the key for having a successful performance. Because in my case, I worked on my physical preparation at the gym. I focused on technical aspects, doing everything I could do to improve my skills and get become a better pilot, but this was just covering a small percentage. So it was an improvement, but it was not a big one. I think that the goal is to reach the flow, which is a mental state in which a person performing an activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement and enjoyment in the process of the activity he's doing. In essence, flow is characterized by complete absorption in what one is doing, and with the result of a loss of the sense of the time. So time is not a factor anymore. To make you understand this a bit better, I will draw this. So I draw. This is the challenge. Skills. So, this is called flow channel. So basically, if the skills level is low, but the challenge is really high, you experience anxiety. On the other end, if the skills level is high, but the challenge is low, you experience boredom. So the goal is to stay inside this flow channel, whereas I said the time is not a factor anymore. It's simply you are really in what you are doing, and you are really immersed in your activity. This is something that was happening to me when I was flying long distances. The time, many times people was asking me how long, and also today when I fly tandem, one of the big questions is how long can you stay in the air? And when I say, well, you can fly for even 8, 9, 10 hours or so, they are all very surprised. And they said, wow, how is possible? What do you do in the air for all this time? But as I remember, when I was flying long distance, I was not really caring about this, and the time was simply passing by very, very fast. So when I landed, I always had the feeling that I was in the air for not so long time, because I was really enjoying it and I was really in this flow channel. I have a curiosity about this mental part. In 1980, Dr. Charles Garfield, former NASA researcher and current president of the Performance Science Institute in Berkeley, California, conducted an experiment on 4 groups of world-class athletes just prior to the Olympics Games in Lake Placid, New York. He wanted to study the effect of the mental training, including visualization, on these top-level athletes. And he divided the groups as follows. So the first group did 100% physical training, so only physical training, no mental training at all. The second group did 75% physical training and 25% mental training. The third group did 50% physical training and 50% mental training. And the fourth and last group did 25% physical training and 75% mental training. And what the researchers found was that group 4, the one with the most mental training, has shown significantly greater improvement compared to group 3, that had only 50% mental training. And likewise, group 3 showed more improvement than group 2, and group 2 showed more improvement than group 1. So basically, the mental training, as you can see, is really essential in sports. Going back to the flow, there are different techniques to reach the flow channel. One is modeling. That basically means if you have to fly for 10 hours and you are not sure you can do it, you just sit in your car and you drive for 10 hours without stopping it. And it's something similar that I was doing when I have my pee problem, because I had some mental block and I could not pee in the air. So I was first training at home. I was wearing a diaper and lying in my bed, simulating the don't laugh, simulating the harness, the position in the harness. And after a while, I managed to pee. So I went back in the air and I could not pee. So I said, why not? I was able to do it when I was at home. And then I was really thinking about it, and I said, well, what's different? And the movement was different, because in the bed I was not moving, but in the air I was in movement. So I decided to do the same, but this time in my car. So I sit in my car, driving position with my diaper, and was driving, and I managed to pee. And and after I went back in the air, and I tried to repeat this thing in the air, and I finally managed to do it. So it works. It really works.
Nicole, I will not buy your car.
It was an old one. Already sold, poor guy. Second technique is the visualization. The daily practice of visualizing your goals as already complete can rapidly accelerate your achievement of your goals and ambitions. For athletes, visualization process is called mental rehearsal, and it was first introduced by the Russians. Well, all you have to do is to set aside a few minutes a day. The best times are when you first wake up, or after meditation and prayer, or right before going to sleep. These are the times when your body and your mind is more relaxed. And well, you can create a picture of you standing on the podium at your next competition, for example, or you can imagine yourself practicing a perfect trick during an acro event. And since your mind is not recognizing the difference between dream and reality, you can really create your movie in your mind. So it's very important that you feel, that you recreate the emotional feelings that you want to have. So you have to be the protagonist of this movie, and it's really important to enter deeply in the emotional state of what you are visualizing in this specific moment. At the same time, you can create an anchor to relive the moment whenever you need or like. For example, a song or a smell or an object. It basically works by associations. I remember, I don't remember if it was a world championship or a super final. Anyway, a good friend of mine won a task, and he was wearing a pair of funny socks, and he decided to wear these socks for the rest of the competition because these socks were representing for him this anchor. So when he was looking at his socks, he was reliving this feeling of winning, of success, of joy that he experienced when he won the task. This is an example for it. Is it clear? Or, yeah? Learning to deal with fear. Well, fear is always present when you are outside of your comfort zone. And it is important to understand that it's a part of the game. So, normally, one who has no fear is not aware of the danger. To make a simple example, just think if you would lose your sensitivity in your skin, probably in winter your fingers will get frozen because you don't realize that you have to put your gloves. Or at the same time, if you cook something and you can easily get burned because you don't realize that your hand is on the fire. So at the same way, a reasonable amount of fear helps you to be more active and reactive in front of a potential danger. Jeb Corliss, a top wingsuit pilot, said after his near-fatal accident, I did a big mistake. I lost fear. Fear is a super important thing, man. If you, without fear, you will die. This is what they said. So basically, you have to learn to stay in this process. I mean, you have to understand that fear is something that will be always with you, but you have to try the way to live together with it. Self-talk. So I I noticed that sometimes, and this happened mainly when I was out of my comfort zone, I started to have some negative thoughts. And these negative thoughts can sound like this. For example, you are in a competition and you say, my rivals fly better than me. Or I will never reach the goal today, or well, it's too turbulent, let's go to land, or this sport is not for me. This is a sentence that I was saying a lot of times to myself. But yeah, you can get rid of these negative thoughts in your mind by using what is called the self-talk and the visualization, of course. How does it work? Well, you assume, let's say, self-comforting posture. You can do it also in the air. And reassure yourself steadily with some positive and encouraging sentences. And you have to focus on your strengths and think of you in a positive way, basically. Goal settings. So, to reach a goal, you must be motivated. And to be motivated, you have to set your goals. These goals can be short, medium, or long term. And they must be specific, measurable, formulated in a positive way, and realistic. Specific means, for example, I want to become a better pilot. This is not specific. You have to ask yourself in which way, what do you want to improve, what are your weaknesses. So you have to try to formulate it a more specific goal. Measurable. An example can be, I want to fly cross country. This is not measurable. How far do you want to fly? Or set a specific distance, type of course, where you want to fly and when. Set a deadline. Positive. Our subconscious mind does not understand negatives. So if you say, for example, I don't want to bomb out, your mind will just read, I want to bomb out. So it's not listening to the negatives. So it's better to formulate it in a positive way, like, for example, I want to fly far. Realistic. A goal has to be set according to your skills and experience, of course. It must be challenging, but at the same time achievable. Otherwise, you will get frustrated soon. And try to work at one goal at a time. So don't give yourself too many goals at the same time. Otherwise, probably your mind will get confused. You will finish losing motivation, and so on. Dealing with failure. Well, there is always a next task, a next comp, a next flight. Every single comp is just a training for the next one. So competition flying is not a destination, but it's a constant journey of learning and getting better. So be humble and thirst for knowledge. So flying is basically a never-ending learning process, and normally the winning is not a normal thing. So most of the times you will lose, and sometimes you will win. You will just have to get used to it. Increasing your self-confidence is really important for success. I've mentioned it before. don't get intimidated if you fly with the world champions. And don't let the better pilots cut you off a thermal, for example, or jump in front of you on takeoff. This doesn't mean that you have to go there and punch them, but just...
Also.
Don't get intimidated. So respect the sports rules and your flying dudes, but be determined in what you want. Learn to concentrate longer on many things at the same time. For example, instruments, weather, the pilots flying around you, birds, dust, and whatever. For example, professional kart and car drivers are following a program that is called Fit for Race. It consists in kneeling on a fitball, and they have two balls in their hands of different sizes, and they have to throw them against the wall. And since the balls are of different sizes, they will react in a different way. So one will come back faster than the other. And once they get familiar with this, their training start to make them mathematical questions and other kind of questions, trying to mess up their concentration. It feels like training for the circus, but actually it's highly effective. Meditation. Yoga can help in this to improve concentration, breathing techniques, mental focus, and recharging your batteries in a short time. Actually, I tried to do this yoga, but for me it didn't work. Maybe I went to the wrong teacher, but I should try it again, because I had some feedbacks that it works pretty well. So maybe you should try. I will write the same here because I have the space. Choosing a mentor. The right mentor is not necessarily a world champion, but is a pilot that has the ability to analyze your progress curve, to guide you step by step, help you to recognize your weaknesses, your limits, and to exalt your strengths and push you forward. I don't have any other points. So basically this is my presentation, but if you have any questions about anything, just feel free to ask.
How do you train your G-force ability? The G-force? Yeah.
As I said, there is this G-force trainer. If you are not really familiar with it, so yeah, if you, I mean, I don't know if there are any others. Probably yes, around Europe there will be others, but. Personally, I fly spirals and all this stuff without problems. But I know that when you go to SAV course, there are many pilots that if you go to the right teacher, they have this kind of machine, and they can really sit there and try to understand the G-force. So basically you have to look around and see where you can find this machine. Otherwise you have to try doing spirals maybe over the lake with an instructor. This is the best way to start. Any other questions, or otherwise we go to the debriefing?
Thank you.
before we start with the debrief, round of applause for Nicole. Really nice presentation. Thank you, Nicole.